Are you nervous to sublimate on glass? When I first heard that you could put glass in your heat press for sublimation, I used to think that people were crazy, but it turns out that it's true. And I'm gonna teach you how to sublimate on glass in this video. My name is Alex Vanover with DIY Alex, and I'm so glad that you're here. Because in this sublimation tutorial, I'm gonna teach you how to sublimate a glass can using a tumbler press, and how to sublimate a glass cutting board using your heat press. So let's get into it.
So the first step to your sublimation project is, of course, to download the files that you're going to be using. So I'm going to be using these DIY Alex affirmation files, and they're already downloaded into my downloads folder. Then the next step is to size and print the files in the way that makes the most sense for you based on your printer setup and the software you prefer to use and all of those fun details. So in this case, I'm going to be using my Sawgrass SG1000 to print my files. So in order to do that, I'm going to go down into my toolbar here and select my print manager and then open local file. Then I'm going to select the file that I want to work with first. So I'm going to choose the DIY Alex You Are Loved and then select open. Now you can see that I left the mirror button checked here because this is not a mirrored file, so I do want to leave that checked. However, I have 8.5 by 11 paper in my printer right now, and so I need to go into the jobs section of my folder, and I need to adjust my file to fit on that 8.5 by 11 paper. So I'll go ahead and adjust the height to about 8.5 inches. That still may be a little bit too big. So maybe let's try 8.4, and we'll just keep adjusting until we get the right size. And then once we have the size adjusted, we'll see it here in the page preview. It is mirrored and ready to go. So this is the same process that you would follow with any type of files, any size that you need to make them. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and hit print. In order to get our second file ready for this project, we're going to repeat the same process of going into Print Manager and then opening a local file. Then we'll select the DIY Alex You Are Enough file and choose open. Then once it's fully loaded into the software, we'll go back into the jobs section, and I need this file super small because this is going to go on our sublimation glass can. So I'm going to change the width to about 3¼ inches. And so we are all ready to go. And when we're ready, we'll go ahead and press print on this file as well.
So the first project that we're going to look at is how to sublimate a glass can tumbler using a tumbler press. And my number one tip when it comes to working with glass and sublimation is that you always want to check your pressure before you ever turn on your heat source. This way you can adjust it without your glass heating up too much, and then you don't have to wait to apply your design. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the lid, and then I'm gonna slide my glass can into my tumbler press. And what I'm looking for when I'm finding the right pressure for glass sublimation projects is I want the pressure to be firm, but I don't wanna be worried that I'm gonna break the glass. So when I pull the handle over, I want it to be a little bit hard to shut. But when I actually put my hand into the press, which is not on just yet, I can't move my glass around, but I'm not concerned about it breaking. So that's how I know that the pressure is in the right place. So once I have the pressure correct in my press, I can open it back up, and then I'll turn the press on and allow it to heat up while I prepare my design on my glass can tumbler. For this particular blank, I need to set my press to 400 degrees for 60 seconds. But of course, you always want to check with the manufacturer or the place that you bought your blank for the best settings for the blank that you're using. So to prepare my glass can, I'm just going to cut out my design from my sublimation paper. And I'm going to place it onto my can with the ink side facing in towards the can. Again, this is why we mirror our design so that it looks correct by the time the glass is finished sublimating. Then once we have the design where we want it, we'll use some heat tape to secure it. And now our design is ready to go, so we'll just wait for our tumbler press to finish heating before we press. So let's talk about the best way to press a glass can. Since I have a design that's only on one side of my can, I'm simply going to place it with the design facing down in the bottom of the press, and I'm going to press for the entire time in the tumbler press. However, if you have a design that wraps all the way around your glass can, my favorite way to make sure that you get consistent pressure around the entire glass is to press the glass can for half of the normal time suggested, open up the tumbler press, and then turn your glass halfway and press it for the other half. Because any time that you have a tumbler press, here at the top, this top seam is not going to get as good and even pressure as the bottom is. So you want to make sure that if you have those designs that go all the way around, that the entire glass can is going to get good, even pressure. So now I'll just put on one of my heat gloves and insert my glass can, again with my design facing down on the bottom of the press, into the press, and press it for the full 60 seconds. And you also want to be sure to have a heat resistant surface ready for your glass can as soon as you pull it out of your tumbler press. So I like to use my Cricut Easy Press mat for this just because it's good and thick and it protects my table. But if you don't have a Cricut Easy Press mat, you could also use something like a silicone or a wood trivet or a pot holder or just anything that's going to protect your surface. Because the thing about glass is it gets a lot hotter than a lot of other materials do, and it takes a while to cool down. So you want to make sure that you have something on the surface that's going to keep your table protected from all of that intense heat. So now that our tumbler is finished pressing, you can go ahead and either use a heat glove and a tool in your other hand to peel off your design, or you can allow it to cool for a little bit of time. I'm going to give this glass can a few minutes to cool, and then we'll come back and check out the design. So I've allowed my glass can to cool enough so that I don't have to use my heat gloves to handle it anymore. And now I can remove the heat tape in the design just using a pair of craft tweezers. And once we have the paper peeled away, here is our design. Now it's maybe not quite as bright as I would like it to be. I suspect it maybe could have used a little bit more time on the glass, but I also think that this frosted glass has a little bit to do with that as well. The colors, especially these lighter colors like yellows and things like that, just don't seem to be quite as bright on frosted glass. But in person, I can still see it great, and I love the way that it turned out. Here's how the final tumbler looks with the bamboo lid and the plastic straw. The first step to sublimating the glass cutting board is the same first step that we took when sublimating the glass can. And that is to place the cutting board into the heat press before the heat press is turned on so that we can get the correct pressure without worrying about the temperature of the glass. So I'll just place the cutting board onto my platen, and then I will lower the pressure until it feels firm on the cutting board, but comfortable, and I'm not concerned about breaking the glass. Ooh. Okay, that felt a little bit sketchy. So I like to go about an entire turn in between each press so that I know that I'm actually significantly reducing the pressure. So that's about one press. Let's try that again. And that felt a lot more comfortable to me. It's still tight when I close the heat press, but it's not so tight that I feel like my glass cutting board is going to break. So now when it comes to sublimating this particular glass cutting board, the top of it has this textured glass look, and the sublimatable surface is actually on the back. So that's why we actually don't mirror the design for this particular cutting board, because it's going to show through the front of the cutting board, so it doesn't need to be mirrored, unlike other sublimation designs. So now I'm going to take my sublimation print and I'm just going to trim off this excess so that I do a good job of centering my design on my cutting board. And then I'll place the print with the ink side down on the white side of the cutting board. Then I like to flip it over so I can see it vaguely through the front to make sure that I place it in a place that looks good to me. I know you probably can't see that on the camera, but I can see it in person. Then once I like where it's placed, I'll flip it back over and just hold it while I do so, and then begin taping the sides in place. And now our cutting board is ready to press. Next, I need to heat up my heat press to the appropriate temperature. So for this particular blank, I need to set it to 400 degrees for 90 seconds. And now we'll just wait for it to heat up. So now that my heat press is fully heated up, let's go ahead and press our cutting board. So the first step is to lay some butcher paper on the top and bottom of the heat press, just to protect the platen from getting any blowout or any extra ink on it. And then when you place your cutting board on your heat press, make sure that the printed side or the sublimation side is facing up towards the top platen. Then you can place another piece of butcher paper on the top. And we are ready to press. So now we'll let this go for 90 seconds. Then the application instructions on this cutting board do say this is a hot peel. So that's why I'm going to use a heat glove. I'm going to place it on my Cricut Easy Press pad. Remember to place that on some sort of heat resistant surface. And then I'm going to use my tweezers to peel the sheet from the back of the cutting board. Look how bright and vivid this is through the front side of the cutting board. I just think that these turn out so cute. Next, I'm going to go ahead and let my cutting board cool because I do have some rubber feet that I can place on the four corners, but I want to let the glass cool completely before I stick these on. So in order to allow it to cool without it damaging my surface, I have it cooling on my Cricut Easy Press mat, and I have the sublimation ink side facing up so that I don't transfer any of the ink onto the Easy Press pad while the cutting board is cooling. So once the cutting board is cool to the touch, now we can add the rubber feet on the back of the cutting board. And these are super simple to apply because you literally just peel them off of the backing and stick them in the corners. I like to try to keep them relatively even, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. This just adds a little bit of a nicer touch to this cutting board. I think it makes it feel a lot more professional. And once your rubber feet are applied, your cutting board is finished. Which one of these projects was your favorite? Let me know down in the comments below. If you learned something in this video, then be sure to give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to DIY Alex for more videos a lot like this one. I love connecting with you on social media, so be sure to use the links down in the description below to find me on your favorite social media platforms. All the hearts.